Good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Parikshit Luthra and here are the headlines we are tracking. Inflation accelerates 7.4% in September, the highest in the last 5 months. Inflation has now above the RBI's 6% target for 9 months in a row. Industrial production in August contracts by 0.8%. Bulls reclaim some lost ground on Dalal Street even as stocks struggle for traction across Asia. Sensex gains nearly 500 points. Nifty back above 17,000. Rupee remains on a tight leash against the dollar. Government announces a one-time compensation for oil marketing companies to bridge the losses they are incurring on LPG. The outlay for this scheme is at 22,000 crore rupees. Edtech meets expectations in the second quarter and raises its full-year growth guidance. Wipro's second quarter is also largely in line with estimates, but the company expects growth in the third quarter to remain modest. Edtech company Byju's announces it will lay off 2,500 employees, also says the company is on the path to profitability and hopes to achieve it by March 2023. Haryana government stops the production of cough syrups at Maiden Pharma's facility, which is linked to the death of 69 children in Gambia. Authorities issue a show-cause notice and list 12 violations, including inadequate quality tests, lack of data integrity, among others. Former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan says India is not immune to the current global economic situation, but he also adds that the impact may not be significant and India can escape with minor cuts, even as he expects domestic growth to remain tepid. Apple and Samsung respond to the government's push for 5G devices. Samsung promises software updates across all 5G devices by mid-November, and Apple vows to do the same for iPhone users by December. Craft beer brand Bira seeks to expand its retail presence, acquires Beer Cafe along with its 30-odd pubs and tap rooms across 15 cities in India. And on what's ailing rural India, CNBC-TV18 continues to drive through the desert state of Rajasthan, where a depleted water table has farmers struggling to stay afloat. Now on to the market action, where the bulls snapped a 3-day losing streak. Dalal Street bucked the trend across most Asian markets. Sensex gained nearly 500 points and Nifty reclaimed the 17,000 mark, gaining 140 points. Bank stocks led the rally, with the Nifty Bank Index gaining over 1%. Mid-caps also clocked healthy gains, even though the index marginally underperformed the Sensex and the Nifty. In the money market, the rupee remains on a tight leash against the dollar for the second day running. The rupee ended the session flat after range-bound trade. One US dollar still continues to cost just over 82 rupees. Oil prices declined for the third day, but Brent crude continues to hover around $95 a barrel. US President Joe Biden says there will be consequences for Saudi Arabia after it sided with Russia to cut oil production. We told you first, and now it's official. The government has announced a one-time compensation for public oil marketing companies selling domestic cooking gas to help them bridge some of the losses that they have incurred on the back of soaring LPG prices. The outlay for this is at 22,000 crore rupees. There was a demand for compensation worth 28,000 crores. Top story this evening, India's consumer price inflation rose to a 5-month high of 7.4% in September from 7% in August. This is the 9th straight time that CPI stood above the RBI's upper tolerance level of 6%. Now the Monetary Policy Committee will have to write a letter to the government explaining the reasons for missing the target and chart out remedial actions it plans to take. Separately, India's factory output contracted by 0.8% in August. The factory output grew 2.4% in July. Lata Venkatesh is here with all the analysis.
Key takeaways: inflation slightly higher than expected, but should not ruffle the Reserve Bank because it's in line with their older forecast for the quarter. Secondly, IIP is the bigger worry, with the August number coming in lower than expected and July number scaled down from the earlier level by about 20 basis Thirdly, now the decision is sealed, not that it was ever in doubt, that the MPC has failed in its to keep its mandate of keeping inflation within the 2 to 6% band for 9 months in a row. A note will have to be written to Parliament explaining. This is first in our lifetime, the first time it's happening after we adopted inflation targeting. So we will have to see how this is taken, whether it is made public and what kind of a weight it has on policy making. Does it disturb the MPC a bit too much, or will they take it in their stride given the unusual circumstances we are in with a pandemic and a war and unusual tightening, a third storm, as the governor called it. We will have to see how they take this forward, but this is certainly a first.
All right, former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan says India is not immune to the current global economic situation, but he also added that the impact may not be significant and India can escape with minor cuts, even as he expects domestic growth to remain tepid. Listen in.
So it is a tough time. It has always been known that when the money, when interest rates go up, money goes back to industrial countries away from the emerging markets. We have prepared for it in India by building reserves, but it doesn't mean that we will be totally immune. Hopefully, we will weather the shock, as you said, with minor hiccups.
And you can catch the entire conversation with former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV18. The Haryana government has decided to halt production at Maiden Pharma's Sonipat plant. It has also issued a 5-page show cause notice listing 12 violations to the company. Maiden Pharma has a week to respond. The company is in the dock after deaths of 69 children in Gambia were linked to their cough syrups. Ekta Batra joins us now. Ekta, what were the key violations?
Well, thanks for that. To start with, the regulators found that the entire plant was under renovation. Regulatory experts point out that many a times when plants are under renovation, evidence gets hidden and it doesn't allow one to assess the compliance standards of the plant in a steady state. Regulators point out many a times dubious manufacturers do that to hide lapses. Also, Maiden Pharmaceuticals failed to produce the logbooks of equipments and instruments regarding manufacturing and testing for the cough syrups. Logbooks are critical to understand the functioning of equipment, and regulators point out it is a basic good manufacturing compliance requirement. Other violations included the following. The company claimed to have submitted 6 months of real-time and accelerated stability data of the cough syrups. What this means is that a manufacturer has to undertake tests to check if the drug is stable, that is, it is looked and behaved the same way after a period of time, generally for the duration of expiry. The inspection, however, found no samples of the product in the stability chamber. This, experts say, point to possible data integrity, which means there is a chance the data could have also been falsified. Another violation was that Maiden Pharma did not perform process validation and analytical method validation for the 4 cough syrups. In layman terms, what this means, according to regulators, is that there is no guarantee that the future batches would be the same and hence reliable going forward as well. Another instance states that propylene glycol had failed as per the certificate of analysis for the test in respect of water, but was declared of standard quality. First, what is a certificate of analysis? It is a document which indicates all the test results of the drug, including the batch numbers of the API used to manufacture it. The drug, before it is released, is tested under many conditions to test the claimed specifications of the drug. In this case, regulatory experts say that the drug probably failed when it was tested to see its stability in water. Other points brought up by the state drug controller in their inspection of the company's Sonipat facility included lack of batch numbers, missing manufacturing and expiry dates in the certificate of analysis report. As mentioned above, it is expected to be the go-to document about the drug in question.
All right, let's also now go across to Timsi Jepuria. Timsi has broken this big story a short while back that the Health Ministry has formed a 4-member panel to look into the WHO report on the Gambia deaths. And all of these were linked to the Maiden Pharma's cough syrup. Timsi, what will be the mandate of this committee? What will it do? By when does it have to submit a report?
Well, the four-member panel group that has been formed, a specific committee that has been formed, is under Y.K. Gupta, who's the vice chairperson of Standing National Committee on Medicines. And remember, this group is clearly being told that the committee will, after examining and analyzing adverse event reports, casual relationship, and all related details shared by WHO, suitably advise and recommend the Drug Controller General of India for a future action, and if need be, they can go opt for an expert panel, a sub-panel, to help this committee actually go in depth and see what were the lapses. Also, apart from this, when it comes to whether WHO has given the details that the Central Drug Controller of India was actually asking for, well, Health Ministry also said that WHO still now has not provided any details, and they are still waiting for that report. And let's see how soon this report comes, because only then we'll be able to deal with such issues when it comes to lapses that were being reported by the state drug regulator to the central government.
All right. So the Haryana government has already suspended production at Maiden Pharma's facility. The central government also swinging into action. Let's see what happens in the days to come. Thank you very much, Timsi Chapuria, for that important piece of news. You can catch a special broadcast on the Maiden Pharma controversy at 10 p.m. in a special broadcast right here on CNBC-TV18. Let's move to the earnings corner now. IT companies Edtech and Wipro met street expectations in the second quarter. Edtech raised its full-year growth outlook, while Wipro projected a modest forecast for Q3. Reema Tendulkar is here to do the number crunching. Reema, over to you.
Thanks so much for that. So in one word, Wipro soft, Edtech strong. So starting with Wipro. Now Q2 was largely in line with expectations. A constant currency revenue growth of 4.1% within the company's guided band. Margin expansion modest at 16 basis points at 15.1%. But the miss has come in the Q3 guidance. That's the December quarter guidance, which has come in softer than what the street was anticipating. The company is now guiding for revenues just about 0.5% to 2% in the current quarter. And this is lower than street expectations. So that's where the miss for Wipro comes in. But on the flip side, Edtech's numbers are looking very good. Q2 is in line with expectations on the top line, a constant currency revenue growth of 3.8%, but margins have come in ahead of expectations. So there is a margin beat in Q2. Margins for Edtech expanding 100 basis points to 18%. And the other positive is that the company has raised the full year revenue guidance. Earlier, the revenue guidance was 12 to 14%. They're now guiding for 13.5 to 14%, 14.5% on the top line. So there is a revenue guidance upgrade, which has come in as a positive surprise. On the flip side, the margin guidance has been lowered. They're now saying margins for this year will be at 18 to 19%, but this doesn't come in as a big surprise for the market, because last quarter, the company had already told us the margins will be at the lower end of their guided band of 18 to 20%. So anyway, street expectations were closer to that 18% bands. In that sense, there are no changes which the analyst community will have to make to the margin estimates. So overall, it's a strong showing from Edtech, but a bit disappointing from Wipro.
All right, thank you very much, Reema, for getting us those big IT earnings. Now, both Edtech and Wipro have strongly come out against moonlighting by its employees. Wipro recently sacked 300 employees for moonlighting, which basically refers to a second secret job. Here are the views of the Wipro and the Edtech top brass on the moonlighting controversy, which you have been reading about in great detail over the last few months.
There are contracts where we expect our employees to not only dedicate time to Wipro, but also keep time for themselves and for families. We're perfectly fine with someone having, a little side job here and there. It's different if you're working for, a company that is in our environment, for example. So it's not a question of legal, it's a question of ethic. We don't believe that it's right to have two jobs having a conflict of interest.
Everybody who signs up to work for Edtech is signing up an employment contract which requires exclusivity. We've had one or two stray instances And that we investigate and take action on, which we have done.
All right, it's Edtech saying that they have seen a couple of moonlighting cases and they have taken action there. Let's move on to the Edtech space now. Edtech company Byju's will be laying off 5% of its workforce as part of its business optimization measures. This will amount to 2,500 employees. Byju's leadership has said that it is targeting a profit by March next year. Shilpa Ranipeta is here with the details. Shilpa, you have been in touch with the company. What is the rationale behind this cost-cutting exercise, and how does Byju's plan to be on the path to profitability?
Well, we've seen Byju's losses also surging to nearly 4,500 crore for FY21. So this move comes as a part of a larger business optimization plan by the company, whereby 2,500 employees will now be laid off in a phased manner across the product, content, media and technology teams. And the company is also undergoing an entire optimization measure for the company, group company as a whole. Now, this will include consolidation of its India K10 business, and this will include a lot of its recent acquisitions also, like Topper, Merit Nation, Tutor Vista, Scholar, amongst others. However, Aakash and Great Learning, two other edtech startups that it had acquired, those will continue to function separately. Now, it's also optimizing its marketing budgets, where it's taking away focus from local marketing and it will be focusing on marketing overseas more now. It's also refocusing its sales, where thereby instead of salesmen going out, it will focus on inside sales that is done through video calls. And this, it says, will lower costs for the company, especially operational costs for the company. And going by all of these measures, it hopes to turn profitable by next year. And like I said, this comes not only in the middle of surging losses, but also issues that it had faced with respect to paying Blackstone for the Aakash Educational Services deal as well. And it's not just Byju's, the entire edtech sector, which saw a surge during the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown phase, has been feeling the pain recently. In just 2022, as per reports, nearly 4,000 employees across edtech startups were laid off. And this is not just Byju's, it also included White Hat Junior, companies like Lead, Vedantu, Unacademy, and we also saw a few others like Lido Learning also going into insolvency. So pain all across clearly for the edtech sector, but Byju's says that it is looking to optimize its business. Back to you.
All right, so Shilpa Ranipeta there telling us about the pain that the edtech sector has been going through and the recent measures to lay off employees by Byju's. Let's move on now and look at all the headlines from the startup space. Shruti Mishra is here to take us through all the major developments. Shruti.
Well, thank you for that. Here are the top stories from the startup world. Craft beer brand Bira 91 acquires the Beer Cafe as it seeks to expand its retail presence. Bira wants to seat itself at beer cafes, 30-odd pubs and tap rooms located across 15 cities in India. Beer Cafe's management will stay put to lead the brand's operations. From acquisitions to going global, UB, the world's first possibility platform that powers the discovery, execution and fulfillment of credit, has announced its first global expansion with Spokto in Dubai, making it the first collect tech platform to foray into the Middle East and North Africa region. This would be followed by expansion in Southeast Asia and US markets in the next 18 to 24 months. More dry powder in store for Indian startups. Fireside Venture raises $225 million from its third fund, plans to invest in 25 to 30 digital-first consumer startups, makes Fireside the latest India-focused VC to set up a new fund alongside Sequoia, Axel, Elevation, Matrix and others. In more funding news, government test prep platform Adda 24/7 bags $35 million in its latest funding round led by Westbridge Capital. Google joins in as a new investor in this round, which also saw participation from existing investors InfoEdge and Asha Impact. With that, it's back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Shruti Mishra, for getting us a startup snapshot here on India Business Hour. Time for a short break, but when we return, we're going to get you a special report from Rajasthan. Tube wells there are running dry, putting livelihoods of farmers at imminent risk. A special report when we're back. Welcome back. You're watching India Business Hour, and Apple and Samsung have committed to upgrade the software on their 5G-enabled phones by the end of this year. Ashmit Kumar gets us more.
Well, even though the Prime Minister unrolled 5G on October 1st, chances are that your Diwali celebrations are unlikely to feature a 5G call or a 5G experience. The reason being that the devices are simply not ready. What does that mean? Well, let's keep in mind that the devices that are being sold that you've probably purchased, which are 5G ready or 5G enabled. The question, however, is that of a software update. A number of these companies need to issue an OTA or over-the-air software update to unlock the phone to make it 5G ready. Now, this is a concern that, in fact, the DOT, the government is conscious of, the Ministry of Electronics and IT is conscious of. In fact, this morning they had a meeting with the handset manufacturers. The likes of Samsung, Apple, Xiaomi were present at the meeting. The government expressed its concern, and that seems to have invited some form of action. In fact, we reached out to the likes of Samsung and Apple. What they tell us, Samsung is specifically in response to the government's concern, has said that the mid of November is by when they will start rolling out these OTA or over-the-air software updates, and that's when the phones will be unlocked for the users to start using the 5G experience. As far as Apple is concerned, it's slightly delayed. By December is by when Apple has confirmed that they will be rolling out these OTA software updates, which will then enable the iPhones to be ready before the end of the year as far as 5G is concerned. So that is some action coming in after the government expressed concerns that this is a thrust area for the manufacturers. They need to enable that. The telecom companies are rolling out 5G. It's time for the handset manufacturers to pull up their socks and to make their phones 5G ready, to unlock the phones. That's the message coming from the government.
All right. Thank you very much, Ashmit, for joining us. So there was a high-level meeting taken place at the Telecom Ministry urging cell phone manufacturers to make sure that they're 5G enabled as soon as possible. Let's now get you a special report now from Rajasthan, part of our rural series. Nearly 70% of Rajasthan is covered by desert, and the agri-dependent population of the state mainly depends on rainfall to make a living. Now, over the years, efforts to introduce better irrigation systems have meant that today, tube wells contribute over 30% of the state's agricultural and domestic needs. But it's these very tube wells that are now running dry, putting lakhs of livelihoods at risk. In this edition of What's Ailing Rural India, CNBC-TV18 Santya Gora visits Jodhpur, one of the state's 10 large districts which are designated as desert land, but support a major portion of the agri community. Take a look.
This is Rajasthan's Tivri Mathania region. It lies around 35 kilometers from the city of Jodhpur and is predominantly desert land. But for over 2 decades since the mid-90s, the region did not have a problem with water scarcity, mainly because almost every farm in the region housed multiple tube wells which formed the bedrock of their irrigation system. In the last 10 years, however, the situation has changed drastically.
पानी खारा आता, जमीन खाली हो जाती, धान बीज हलता नहीं है, आगे पैदा कुछ नहीं होती। अभी स्थिति बहुत माड़ी है, बोरिंग बहुत ऊंडा गया, पानी ऊंडा गया, अपना ट्यूबवेल करे पानी नहीं मिल रहा है। पहले तो पानी मिलता, अभी तो मिलता ही नहीं है।
हम दूसरी जगह से पानी लाते हैं, यहाँ से 3-4 किलोमीटर दूरी से। दूसरा पानी तो आता है, कितना दिन चलेगा कितना दिन नहीं चलेगा वो कोई मालूम नहीं है। वो चलता है तो आधा वो पानी वाला रहा और आधा हमका रहता है, आधा तो वो पानी वाला ले जाता है।
For farmers like Dedaram who cannot afford to depend on the region's irregular rainfall to sustain his 5-acre fields, the situation has become dire. A depleted groundwater table has meant that the 3 tube wells which serviced his farm have become useless. He now fetches water from over 3 kilometers away to ensure his crops of garlic, cotton, groundnuts and chili do not wither away.
दिनों दिन पड़ता ही गया, आने वही एकदम पड़े, दिनों दिन बिल्कुल धीरे धीरे बंद होगा। पर कोई ट्यूबवेल में खारा भी हो गया, ठीक है, बिल्कुल बंद हो गया। हमें पानी है बारों लाल ये फसल पाई है। अरे हमारी इन साइड में आगे 2 किलोमीटर पानी बिल्कुल खारा है, जो पानी बारीक होने आवत खारी जमीन ना हो जाए, पावा कौन खेत पड़िया, क्या काम है।
His son and neighbor Sonaram chimes in with some stark numbers.
अभी 2 साल पहले हमने एक बोर और कराई थी, जो अभी अब मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, उसमें एक बूंद भी पानी नहीं मिला है। दूसरी जगह से हम 4-5 किलोमीटर से पानी की व्यवस्था करते हैं, उसका लगभग हमारे हिसाब से 1 बीघे में लाख रुपए का लगभग खर्चा आता है।
The state government is aware of the situation, but its efforts to provide aid have not been very successful, and this has the farming community frustrated.
राजस्थान में अंडरग्राउंड वाटर जहाँ भी पेयजल लायक था, खेती लायक था, वह सब डार्क जोन की स्थिति में है, सब सूख चुका है। और सरकार ने वाटर शेड के नाम से हज़ारों करोड़ रुपया इन्वेस्ट किया है, लेकिन वो भ्रष्टाचार के गया है।
As of 2020, the Central Groundwater Board says that of the 295 blocks in the state, the underground water levels had been overexploited in 203 blocks, so nearly 69% of the state's blocks that cannot be used anymore. The water level in 23 other blocks had reached critical levels, shrunk to semi-critical levels in 29 blocks, and only 37 blocks have water levels above levels considered safe. 3 of these blocks have been categorized as containing saline water. The report also points to rising level of magnesium, fluoride, chloride, sulfate, calcium, uranium, and arsenic in groundwater.
This year's heat wave made the situation worse. The summer was especially difficult for people of Nagaur, Bhopalgarh and Tivri-Mathania regions of Jodhpur block. Farmers in these regions depend on rains for their irrigation and domestic needs, and the unpredictability makes this less than a favorable situation for a state like Rajasthan. Every government which has ruled the state so far has claimed that it has worked to improve groundwater levels, but neither data nor ground realities support these claims. In Mathania, with camera person Milind Wagmare, this is Santhya for CNBC-TV18.
All right, that was Santhya Gora reporting from Rajasthan, and she has been getting you a lot of stories on the problems faced by the agri-economy in the state. Moving on to the aviation space now, India's biggest airline by market share, Indigo, is inducting Boeing planes into its fleet for the first time to bolster international operations. Official sources tell CNBC-TV18 the airline is inducting up to 4 wide-bodied B-77 planes through wet lease, which means the aircraft will come along with crew, maintenance and insurance. Indigo had confirmed its decision to induct certain fleet for its international operations. However, the airline declined to comment on CNBC-TV18's query if these planes will be Boeing 777. Meanwhile, the 12th edition of CNN News 18's Indian of the Year were announced today. Several personalities were nominated across 5 categories, including social change, climate and sports. Actor Allu Arjun won the Entertainer of the Year award at the event with Alia Bhatt, Kartik Aaryan and Vivek Agnihotri as nominees in the category. We leave you with these pictures. Thank you for watching India Business Hour.
शहर ये मेरी डगर सर पे ये आकाश मेरा है घर इंडिया कभी झुकेगा नहीं थैंक यू